Lisa, thanks. I want to go back outside of that committee room where Michael is now talking with Danny Bensky, an Epstein abuse survivor. Let's take a listen.
I think hopefully in the next couple of weeks, their offices will take meetings with us. Yeah.
And I would also ask, and we're live on MS Now right now, you were in the room for this vote. You've been talking to the senators in the lead up. You've been advocating against Todd Blanche. I guess I would ask, what are your reflections and feelings after watching this vote take place in real time?
Yeah, I mean, there's always a glimmer of hope that somebody will do the right thing. And I was really hoping that it would be John Cornyn, to be honest, because he has been such a great advocate and proponent for putting those who have abused and for sex trafficking rings away. And so to see that this is how he's going to end his career and his legacy, it's really depressing.
He just said to us that there was nothing that he could say or do to assuage your concerns. What do you say to that?
I think there's so much proof in the files, and I think that there need to be real investigations. But beyond the real investigations, the DOJ committed its own crime here. I mean, nude photos were released. All of our information was out there and exposed, and there's just no accountability for that. So I think they're two separate things, and I think there's plenty that they could have done to stop that.
What would be your message now to Senator Murkowski, Senator Collins, Senator Cassidy, as, again, this was a significant hurdle for Todd Blanche, but it's not the entire ball game. What would be your message to them in the lead up to this final vote?
Yeah, to please take a meeting with us, because there's so much information that we have to share, not just investigative leads, but just how this process has gone down for the 5 administrations and 30 years. There's just a lot of ground to cover. So I would say take a meeting with us, and we'll be able to get you the information you need. Yeah. Thank you.
That was Michael Schnell with Danny Bensky, an Epstein abuse survivor. I want to go back to Jake, who had that exchange in the Oval Office, a lengthy one with the president there yesterday about Todd Blanche's nomination and about the anti-weaponization fund and the IRS immunity agreement and the lack of answers, the obfuscation, and even that John Cornyn himself just acknowledged as he voted to move and proceed the nomination of Todd Blanche to the full floor of the Senate. One of the questions we had, knowing Cornyn and knowing Tillis are leaving the U.S. Senate after this year, and effectively he celebrated that he had gotten them out of office, is to what extent from your conversations over the last year and a half are you hearing that the president is concerned about his bulldog style of approach to the use of the executive office and being able to bully members of Congress? It seemed like it maybe worked in this situation, or the judicial branch, that is going to continue to be his way forward. And I guess the question is, what would the alternative be?
Yeah, I love that you asked that question, Vaughn, because it gets at this thing that is different in the second administration, which is that to the question of, is the president concerned about his bulldog approach? No. Is his staff concerned about his bulldog approach? Yes. I think from some of our reporting that we've done over the past few weeks, we have talked with White House officials who increasingly, essentially, in a summation of it would be, they say that the president would rather have an incredibly loyal minority of Republicans in the House and Senate than a more diverse coalition of Republicans that are a majority. The president wants full, utter control here, and we've seen him exert that on Cornyn and others that he's primaried because they were not MAGA enough. I'll remind you, Cornyn had a 99-point-something% voting record with the president. This is increasingly a problem for those that are around the president because they do want to do well in the midterms. They do want to mitigate damage here. And we are seeing the president receive information in a different way this second administration, where he doesn't care as much about the midterms. He doesn't care as much about polling. He cares more about legacy. He cares more about ultimate loyalty. I think this is a clear moment where his staff is having to reckon with the fact that they want to do the best they can to shore up and mitigate damage in the midterms. This is another good example of it, but the president isn't near as focused on that. He's focused on blind loyalty here.
And that's where, Paul, we have seen all signs of independence between the White House and the Department of Justice be eliminated over the course of the last year and a half. But Dick Durbin, Democratic senator from Illinois, directly accused Todd Blanche of lying under oath, saying that he told him in a private meeting that the slush fund was going to be killed, that it was going to be a goner, and then came out and denied in this congressional hearing having ever said that to him. And that is an understanding where Todd Blanche is effectively going to be doing exactly as the president desires. Where do you see that wall, having it being eliminated? How do you see it impacting the Department of Justice even more so over the next 2.5 years?
The Department of Justice's credibility will be even further eroded, and not just among the American people, but also in courts of law. So increasingly we see judges saying, we're not going to take the Justice Department's word. Just because they make an assertion doesn't mean it's true. So there's this presumption of ordinariness or regularity that typically applies where courts think that DOJ is operating in good faith. That no longer applies. One example, again, we have former FBI Director James Comey literally being prosecuted over some sand shells on a beach. That prosecution almost certainly will not stand, but this acting attorney general is presiding, not just presiding, but cheerleading that corrupt act by the Department of Justice.
Lisa, you have a deep history with federal prosecutors and U.S. attorneys' offices. How does what Jeanine Pirro just went through in the last 48 hours, how does what Todd Blanche is having to defend or seek to prop up, a $1.8 billion slush fund, due to the pool of federal prosecutors that would consider even putting their name forward to this administration to serve as a U.S. attorney in one of the many offices across the country?
Vaughn, when I graduated from law school more than 20 years ago, being an assistant United States attorney in the Southern District of New York, as Todd Blanche was, or working at one of the main satellite offices around the country, that was a marquee plum legal job, as Paul well knows. Now, today, with new law school graduates, I don't see that being the same prestigious option that it once was, because when they look around the country, they see malevolence, incompetence, or some combination of the two. You know, Paul mentioned the Comey Seashells case. You mentioned the Reflecting Pool case, in which Jeanine Pirro basically had to go before a judge and say, we mistakenly indicted this case before we had all of the evidence. We don't think we can prove beyond a reasonable doubt that this man committed the crime. As the lawyer Norm Eisen said about his client Davy Hearn, these are people who go ready, fire, and then aim. The fact that it's so backwards, that's a disincentive to newly minted law school graduates all over the country about serving in this Department of Justice. And increasingly, what I think we're going to see is inexperience and, you know, some of the Keystone Cops-like prosecutions that we have witnessed.
Michael, you've been on this every hour and including through the weekend. We appreciate you. What are you going to be asking and who are you looking for here this afternoon? And when should we anticipate the full Senate voting on Todd Blanche's nomination?
Yeah, so the three Republican senators will be keeping an eye on it. Of course, there are others, but the main ones are going to be Bill Cassidy, someone who has raised concerns about the fund, about the immunity deal, but also about Todd Blanche's independence. The latest he has said is no comment. We're also going to be looking for Susan Collins. She said she wants to review the deal that was struck by Cornyn and Tillis with the DOJ. She wants to look at those particulars before making a decision. And then Lisa Murkowski, someone who said that it was a large step forward, that deal, but she first wants to talk to Tillis and to Cornyn to understand the full breadth of the terms before she also makes a decision. Certainly, there are other Republicans to talk to as well, but those are going to be the main three. And then in terms of when a vote can happen, that right now is up in the air. There's a lot of procedure that goes into having a Senate vote, so it is possible that this bleeds into the weekend or early next week. We're certainly going to be keeping an eye on that. But again, not a cakewalk to confirmation just yet because of those Republicans who remain on the fence.